Good afternoon. Hope you had a great day. So, one of my favorite stories is the story of the famous Reb Zusha of Anapoli, one of the great Chassidic masters that lived in the time of the Alter Rebbe about 250 years ago. Reb Zusha of Anapoli once said that he's not scared that when he comes up to heaven after 120 that God's going to ask him, why weren't you like Moses? Or why weren't you like Abraham, or Sarah, or Rebecca, or Isaac? Because he's not Moses, and he's not Abraham. God never expects him to be that way. But what he's terrified is that he's going to come up to heaven, and God's going to say, Zusha, why weren't you Zusha? Why didn't you live up to your potential? Forget about everyone else, but your potential. Do you strive to be someone else? Do you try to live the life of someone else? Are you always catching up to the Joneses and trying to be who you're not? Well, Moses gives us one of the most powerful lessons, or actually God gives it to Moses in this week's Torah portion. Moses is recounting what happened when he pleaded with God to go into the land of Israel. And Moses says that after a while God said, Ravlach, enough! Don't ask me again. You can't go into Israel, climb onto the mountain, look all sides, see the land, because you will not go there. And the Talmud, in an enigmatic discussion, picks up the words Ravlach, which means enough, no more, and says, aha, if you remember in the story with Korach, when Korach rebelled against Moses and Aaron, and Korach says, I want to be like Aaron. I want to be the high priest. Why is Aaron the high priest and not me? Says Moses to Korach, Ravlach, enough for you. Is it not good enough that you're a Levite? You have to be the high priest. So God says, you said that to Korach. You gave him that good tiding, Biser. You gave it to Korach. Now I give it to you. But the question is, what's the connection? First of all, Moses was right. Korach was rebelling against God, so of course he told him enough, don't do it. But here Moses wanted to go into Israel. He gave his life for it. This is who he was. Why couldn't he go in? Moses, the greatest leader, all he wanted was to go into Israel. So how could the Talmud compare what Moses said to Korach and what God said to Moses? And the answer the rabbis give is a very powerful one and a very beautiful one. You see, what Moses was telling Korach, you don't have to be like Aaron, the high priest, to fulfill your mission in life. Ravlach wasn't a negative thing. Moses wasn't telling Korach, hey, enough for you. Who do you think you are? You can't be the high priest. No, you were saying something much deeper and much more important. You were saying, Korach, you want to fulfill who you're supposed to be. You want to be the best person you could be. You want to be Zusha. Forget about Abraham. Forget about Moses. That's not who you are. Then be happy with what God gave you to do and fulfill that role to the best you could. And you'll accomplish it. And that's what happens when Moses wants to go into the promised land. And he begs God, please, if not, my whole life I worked for this. Everything is for waste. God says, Ravlach, it wasn't a negative thing. He was saying, says the Talmud, the same thing that Moses taught Korach. God was teaching Moses. Listen, Moses, he says, just because I'm not letting you go into the Holy Land doesn't mean you didn't fulfill who Moses has to be. You were the best you could be and will be. You're the greatest leader that lived. It doesn't mean you have to be the one to take them to the promised land. Be who you are. You see, we live in a world where everyone's trying to be someone else. The problem is, but when you try to live the life of someone else, there's three issues with it. First of all, when you try to be like someone else, then who's going to be you? God made every human being singular in the sense that they have a mission that's unique for them. They have their own unique personality that no one in the world has. And they have something to accomplish that no one else does. So if you say that I'm going to be someone else, then who's going to be you? Secondly, how could a person be happy trying to be someone else? It's not you. And thirdly, you're lying to yourself. When you try to be someone else, the whole time you end up lying to yourself. Says God to Moses, Ravlach, remember what you told Korach. This is a message for all times, for all of us. We live in a time when every guy wants his kid to get into Harvard, every woman wants their kid to get into Brown or to Wellesley, and we're trying to live for someone else. But God says, Rav Lach, be happy with who you are, with the gifts and the talents that God gave you, because there's no one else that will ever have those talents. Martin Luther King, the last speech he gave, the church in Memphis, he says, I've climbed down to the mountain. I've seen the promised land. I know we'll get there. I might not be there with you, but I know that we'll get there. He used the words of Moses, the famous words of Moses, what God tells him. And you know what? MLK was killed the next day. He was a young man. He was 40 years old. But what MLK did, the unique mission that God gave him, no one else was able to do. He didn't get to see the promised land. He didn't get to go into it. He saw it. And that was the message. So friends, I think it's an important message in the world we live in. Don't try to be like someone else. Don't be sad that you can't do this and you can't go here and you can't be like this one. Because guess what? It wasn't meant to be. You have to be the best person you and I could be. Because remember what Zusha said. And the day comes when you're going to come and face God. They're not going to ask you, why weren't you Moses or Aaron or Zusha? They're going to say, why weren't you you? And if you lived up to your potential, then you will be successful. God bless you. Have a great, happy day being the best person you could be.